Did you know that the difference between a good reader and poor reader is almost invariably their vocabulary knowledge? After we get our kids learning to recognize the words, the next big hurdle that we have is how to get them to know enough words, have strong vocabulary knowledge. And that is a huge challenge for us. We only have them for 180 days. And there are thousands of words that our kids need to know, right? How do we deal with this? That's what we're going to be talking tonight about here at Reading Simplified, where we help teachers streamline classroom instruction and accelerate students' reading achievement. And vocabulary knowledge and vocabulary building is probably the one of the biggest areas where we can grow as teachers and parents. So, voluminous vocabulary, how do you develop it and why is it so important? You already know this, and yet it's still hard to pull off. I didn't have a lot of great examples of great vocabulary instruction as a student, and I suspect many of us haven't as well. There's so much to cover, right? We know it's important, and yet maybe we haven't had a lot of great models for it. So this can be a challenge. Again, also imparting great vocabulary instruction can be a challenge because we have so many different things that we feel are important. And I just want to give a shout out to prioritizing vocabulary. By the end of 12th grade, kids need to know about 50,000 word families. And a word family would be a group like parent, parenting, parents. All those are one, that would count as one. Parent would be the root word family. Okay, 50,000. So, and of course they start with no words at all. And by the time they get to 12th grade, they're supposed to learn 50,000. So that basically means they've got to learn about 3,000 to 4,000 words a year. Okay? Which comes out to like 16 to 20 words a day. And did you know this? To learn one new word, researchers have also estimated you need to read about 1,000 words. Okay, so this is also a pretty big challenge, right? We have talked about this recently, how a lot of our kids are not reading that many words in a given year. So we've got about 50% of the children reading maybe under 1 million words, whereas kids in the upper 98th percentile are reading almost 5 million words. So if they're reading 5 million words, they're on track to being college and career ready, but most of the rest of this group of kids are not because they're just not getting enough exposure. So don't panic. There is still a lot that we can do. We cannot teach 4,000 words a year explicitly ourselves, but what can we do? So these are some principles that I'd love for you to get in your brain. You may have them already, but just to reiterate them and to coalesce your thinking about them and see and kind of reflect on how am I doing in these areas and what could I beef up. And then we'll move into that bookmark where I'll talk about the explicit things you can do each time or many times you teach words. So how many of you are already defining and elaborating words all day? Throughout the day as you go, whether you're reading a book or talking about a new concept in science or just commenting on the weather, throw out big $5 words and define them and elaborate them. Do that almost so you're blue in the face. That's the best way to pass along a rich vocabulary to our kiddos through our language, oral language. And we know that from reading research that kids learn a lot of the words from the words that they hear. So draw that out from them. But again, you can't teach them all explicitly. So one other thing you can do is to cultivate word consciousness. In other words, through your explicit vocabulary teaching, and especially if you do it in a fun, investigative way, you can get kids to be more aware of their words and the words that they don't know. So there's an infinite number of ways to do this. But just talking about, oh, isn't this an interesting word? And look at the way it looks. And have you ever heard that before? And let me know if you hear this week. I would love to know what you think. Maybe those kiddos, there at the bottom, it says they could individually collect their own words, that's another way to bring their own awareness of the words that they do know and the words they want to learn into play. So, for instance, I do this still as a reader, especially if I own my own book and I come to a word I don't know. I don't want to go look it up if I'm reading a fiction book and I don't have something accessible nearby. I'll just write down the word and the page number. Okay? Well, and I'll look at it later and I'll get a nice little list that's just for me. That's that individualization. So I can learn the words that I need to know. And that's going to be the best tool for me, right? Your kids maybe could just collect their own words on a Post-it note. Maybe they'll look them up later. They can talk about the words that they've discovered in their small groups. They could go look them up with a child-friendly dictionary, or maybe you could talk about them with them. And they could do activities with those words. Each kid could have their own words. So that would raise their consciousness of the fact that they're in charge of their learning of this cool thing called language. And so those are some things that you can get kids to do, independently in your environment, but also you want to definitely planfully teach and review specific words. So don't just be embedding your vocabulary instruction all day long, kind of haphazardly. You want to also have something explicit. Another important thing to consider is to connect the words in all your content areas, ideally through a thematic approach. So if you're studying American history and you can study science at scientists in, say, the 1840s, 1850s, and connect it also with the Civil War, and they'll use the vocabulary from that time period, building a mental web for your kids of how those things are all connected. So words that are haphazard are certainly going to help us, but when we start to link things in thematic ways, it's going to build stronger connections with our kids. So don't think of vocabulary as instruction as an ELA thing. This is not just at all an English language arts mission. It is really a mission for us throughout the school day. The music teacher should be here right now, the art teacher, the science teacher, the PE teacher, all of them, all of us are responsible for imparting a rich vocabulary to our kids. And one of the best ways we can do it is through thematic instruction. I just love to, get not textbooks, but texts from the library on a lot of topics and get kids reading on them and then pull the words from them and make visual representations of them in some way in the classroom. And the vocabulary word wall is a great way to do that. Because there's, like we said, 3,000 to 4,000 words our kids have to read, we really have to think of this as like a fire hose method, okay? We need to have rich language and literacy all day long, and we need to read aloud a lot, and we need our kids reading aloud, reading themselves a lot. We need to talk with sophisticated words, and then we need to also give the kids opportunities to listen to someone else reading, because if we can't do it all, we can have them be off to the side and be quiet and listen to a sophisticated book. So we read to them, they listen to sophisticated books, and they read themselves, and we talk with rich language opportunities, and we do this explicit anchoring of sounds and symbols. And with that, along with word consciousness, drawing their interests to collect their own words, I believe we can make a difference in the statistics where most kids aren't going to learn 3,000 to 4,000 words a year, even though they need to be able to be super independent and successful in their careers or in their college.